This is the 18th gene key. City is perfection, gift is integrity, shadow is judgment. Entitled The Healing Power of the Mind. Programming partner 17th gene key. Physiology is lymphatic system. Amino acid is alanine. The codon ring within the 18th gene key is the ring of matter, which consists of the 8th, the 46th, the 48th, and the 40 or 57th. I'm sorry. One of the reasons why I'm deciding to read this gene key is because I've been dealing a lot with family lately, as I've been dealing with my girlfriend and her kids, and there's a lot of developmental teachings for the ages of 14 through 21 that I want to talk about. So let's begin. The 18th shadow, judgment. This is the shadow. The victim mind. Built into the human genetic matrix is a deep sensitivity to imperfection, and it is this sensitivity that gives rise to the human qualities of criticism and judgment. So we shall see the 18th gene key and its themes of judgment integrity can have either an empowering or a disempowering effect on you and others. This theme of judgment runs about as deep in human nature as any other trait you can imagine. The 18th shadow begins in your childhood as a built-in need to challenge authority, and the first real authority in your life is, of course, your parents. Challenging our parents is a fundamentally healthy thing to do, as it is year, cycled, and roughly spans the age of 14 through 21. This stage of our development primarily concerns the growth and expansion of our mental faculties, and it is during this period that our future opinions are laid down and our capacity to judge is tested and forged. The key to this process lies more in the frequency of the parents than the child. If the parents make the mistake of taking this process personally, the child will never fully make the transition through this biological phase, instead becoming stuck at the same low frequency of the parents. Excuse me. If, however, the parents do not get stuck in their own judgmental or self-judgmental patterns, then this phase will result in true adulthood. Sadly, most children never make it, and essentially stay trapped in deep low-frequency patterns of judgment for the rest of their lives. The 18th shadow gives rise to a collective phenomenon in the world known as the victim mind. The victim mind is a conglomeration of all the undermining, judgmental thought patterns throughout the world. If you sincerely examine your own thoughts during a typical day, you will probably discover that a great percentage of your thinking is affected by the victim mind. In other words, you are allowing your mind to be influenced by the collective negative thought patterns of the whole of humanity. The true import of this last statement can come as a huge shock to many people. The world of the victim mind is an inner world of gossip, complaining, and of course worry. Most of us complain inwardly about all aspects of our lives, especially the people in our relationships. And we worry incessantly about mundane issues such as money and our health. Ironically, though, it is exactly this kind of thinking that keeps us from being abundant in terms of both our wealth and our health. You may think it is absolutely human to complain, but it creates a negative frequency in the human aura of both the complainer and the victim. In other words, the more you complain, the more you damage yourself and the world. Morally speaking, judgment gets a bad rap in the modern world. We talk about being non-judgmental as though it were one of the highest, noblest goals in life. In fact, it is impossible not to judge because judgment is the way in which the human mind thinks. What defines the low frequency of the victim mind is that you identify with what you think. In other words, your judgments define your identity and make you feel more secure. However, if you can make a judgment and at the same time be aware of judging, then you are no longer trapped by your own mind, and thus the frequency around that judgment changes. Because the 18th shadow is twinned with the 17th shadow of opinion, these two genetic themes are inseparably linked through the structure of your DNA. All judgment is rooted in opinion, and vice versa. The more you think you are your opinions, the more you have to defend them, whereas the more you lightly hold them, the less attached you become to them. This 18th shadow is about needing to be right. It takes a loosening and a lightening of your identity to let go of your need to be right. If this gene key is a part of your hologenetic profile, then the most important question to ask yourself is, would I rather be right, or would I rather be happy? Of course, we all want to be happy, right? I mean, come on. What is so fascinating about the 18th shadow is that the details of the judgment themselves are utterly irrelevant. It's just the fact that you are judging. Excuse me, I'm eating a great vegan tikka masala dish made by our home chef, and she is awesome. It doesn't matter what your political views are, or how much you might detest or disapprove of someone. The only thing that matters is how seriously you take your own judgments. If your identity rests on your judgments, then everywhere you go, you will stir up negativity. Not through your opinions, but through the turbulent frequency you put out into your environment. Even if your judgment feels positive to you, it doesn't matter. The chances are it will be misread by others just because you hold it so tightly. The themes of both the 17th and 18th shadows can also become easily obsessed with details. The victim mind can fixate on the tiniest and most irrelevant details in life. At a low frequency, these are the kinds of minds that blow things far out of proportion, espousing opinions that are actually far more removed from the facts. The 18th shadow holds another of the key secrets of all human interaction, that all judgment is self-judgment. Because we humans perceive ourselves as separate from each other, we miss this vital fact. The challenge in the person is to create a division within yourself. This does not mean that you should never challenge others, but it does not mean that you need to remember. It just means that you need to remember that the other represents something inside of you that you are being given an opportunity to resolve. This is super, 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 uber important. I'm going to read it again because it's so important. To challenge another person is to create a division within yourself. This does not mean that you should never challenge others, but it does mean that you need to remember that the other represents something inside of you that you are being given an opportunity to resolve. The key to raising the frequency of the 18th shadow lies in this perspective that everything external in your life is a mirror of an internal process seeking resolution. This is why the highest aspect of the 18th gene key is perfection. Because life is continually offering you a pathway to the realization of your own perfection. As an aspect of the codon ring of matter, the 18th gene key is part of a genetic chain a genetic chain of low frequency spheres buried in the human genome. These spheres lie deep within the body's immune system and create the matrix for all human initiation into higher states. It is precisely your passage through these spheres that allows you to gain access to the higher levels of frequency and realization. It is through the cluster of gene keys within this codon that spirit first penetrates into the world of matter and releases its true radiance. In this inner world, the 18th shadow governs the integrity of your mental body, your mind. The secret of this shadow is the gradual realization that your outer life is your greater body. The more deeply you accept responsibility for this, the less personally you take life and the easier it becomes. The 18th shadow is thus a place inside your DNA that causes you to become mentally attached to the material world and all its distractions, which in the long run only serves to increase your suffering. However, as you escape the victim mind, you begin to alter the coding structure of this aspect of your DNA, thereby attracting a higher energetic frequency stream into your life and changing everything for the better. Okay, moving on. The repressive nature is inferiority. The repressive side of the 18th shadow is about feeling inferior. This pattern first develops through our relationships with our parents, particularly during our teen years. If our parents judge us too harshly during these formative years, a pattern of self-judgment sets in. If you are one of those people that your pattern is to turn judgment on yourself. Out of your own self-judgment, you become a conformist, going along with the majority instead of standing up for yourself and your own convictions. All judgment is based on comparison, and with self-judgment, you compare yourself unfavorably to someone who you consider to be above you. This in turn gives rise to a deep-seated feeling of inferiority and a constant habit of undermining yourself. Totally, I do that all the time. The reactive nature. Superiority. The reactive side of the atheist shadow manifests as the judgment of others based on feeling superior. This judgment emerges as a constant need to challenge any authority figure, beginning with the parents. If the process of challenging one's parents is not permitted a natural resolution, this behavior pattern becomes a permanent part of one's character. It occurs when our parents do not maintain strong enough boundaries around us and instead fall victim to their own self-judgments. The urge to challenge then becomes cemented by an unconscious anger in the child that the parents are not strong enough to maintain their integrity. This translates in teens' life to a deep disrespect for authority and a belief that one is somewhere above it. These are volatile people whose very identity is built around the undermining of others.